Hello, Jim 12's here again, 24th of June 2022, and I'm trying not using a tripod this time, but seeing how we go holding the camera. Anyway, here's an experiment. So in this video I want to talk about a video that I watched well over an hour by Dan Astin-Gregory and Professor Mattias Desmet. Now, Mattias Desmet was the guy from Belgium who became very famous last year, I think, with his discussion of mass formation or mass hypnosis to explain why the people of the world were behaving in the way they were. Anyway, he started this video with a bit of a recap on examples of mass formation in the past, and he quoted the Christian Crusades, which was a challenge to me, but I guess is a fair point. Christian Crusades were in an atmosphere of mass formation. I imagine that the people involved would be absolutely convinced that what they were doing was right. Witch hunts, again, if you can imagine, everybody would think that yes, the witches are evil, therefore we've got to by all means capture them and eliminate them. Russian communism of the last century, and also last century Nazi Germany, all the examples he claims, Desmet claims, of mass formation. He's got a lovely phrase for the precondition of mass formation. He calls it free-floating anxiety, frustration and aggression. So if you can imagine a society that has just a pervasive anxiety that don't know why they're anxious, and coupled with that a disconnection with one another and with anything with any meaning, they're frustrated because they can't really see their way forward, and some will definitely be very aggressive as a result of all this disquiet. He calls it a social atomization, which I think is a very helpful phrase. And then along come the leaders of a community, of a nation, and they're convinced they have the answers, and they propose a solidarity of meaning, a collective together. We're going to be all in this together, and we're going to beat this aggressor, or whatever it happens to be, or this virus. So they're totally convinced they're also part of the mass formation, that they have the answer. But Desmet says that these connections are not real. They're certainly not lasting relationships. Then in the video, Dan and Mattias go on to talk about the emergence of the mechanistic and the rational view of the world. And I can imagine what that is. I was obviously at school in the 60s, and science was really becoming the king in society. The preeminence of science was absolutely pervasive. It really was. So I can understand that since then the world has become mechanistic, in other words, cause and effect, rational. There's a real, tangible, concrete reason for everything. But at the same time, that's been following on from the removal of faith in society. Now you think about the Western society that was built on Christianity, and if you remove that as certainly a body blow was dealt in the 1960s and ever since, and what you're left with is a mechanical, rational view of the world where God doesn't exist. That's the situation that I would argue, and they argue in their discussion, leads to social disconnection and lack of meaning. Desmet has two lovely examples which I'd like to talk about. One, the invention of the wristwatch. Now, I have a wristwatch, and I would definitely feel naked without it. I feel awkward. I feel that is my timepiece, and it's got the date on it as well. So if I get the date mixed up, I can just look at my wrist, and there's the date, 24th of June. But imagine a world where there was no wristwatch. We would have to rely on where the sun is in the sky, and where the moon is, and what phase of the moon is, and the temperature of the real world. We wouldn't be cosseted by air conditioning. We'd be a lot more connected to nature and the local environment. And then he goes on about the GPS system. Now, this is close to my heart. I have the facility for GPS in my car, but I don't use it. And I remember a few days ago my wife said, if we get lost we can always turn it on. Well, I say, I wouldn't know how to use it. I would much prefer to have a map, which I do have, thankfully. I've now got the UBD of Sydney, and that tells me where I am, and I orientate it towards the north, and I know where I am. But if you're using a GPS to navigate, you don't know where you are actually. You are disconnected from the world. You go left at this roundabout, in 200 meters you turn right, and there you have reached your destination. I am sorry, I can't cope with a GPS system. Desmet then goes on to talk about the world has become obsessed with logical pathways to the exclusion of lateral thinking and critical thinking. Now, let's do a test, a litmus test of society. Do we have a preponderance of logical thinking, and to the exclusion of all possibilities that are not logical, not linear? I think that's definitely making our society all the poorer. He then goes on and advocates some solutions to all this. And as I wrap this little video up, let's try and end on a positive. He advocates good speech. Funny language, but I can cope with that. Good speech. Good speech that is the truth. Unequivocal truth. As opposed to rhetorical speech, or the speech that you get in sound bites from politicians and media commentators. They're simply there to use clever words to manipulate people, manipulate people's thinking, nudge people's thinking into a particular pathway. So he's advocating good speech, a way of ensuring that even if it's not popular or it doesn't seem logical, we can still say what the truth is. So if an experiment in science doesn't work, that's actually good, because it has disproved the null hypothesis. And that means you've proved what you want to prove. And finally, the discussion concluded with an advocating of networks of truth. And I really would love to think that I could build, even if it's ones and twos, a network of truth tellers, people who don't have to win an argument, but are focused on what is actually known, and we admit what we don't know. I always remember quoting my father saying, you work from the known to the unknown. That means you have your feet firmly planted on what is concrete, but you don't tread on water or thin ice until you've got some evidence to do so. And they also suggest the reintroduction of the Greek agora, as in the heart of a Greek city, where people would gather to have open, frank, robust, but polite conversation and exchange of ideas. And out of that becomes amazing, great things. All things can come out of good open discussion. So let's have more of it. And as an antidote to globalism, which is so impersonal and dominated by 3 major global companies, maybe one day, let's have the local community, which meets together and has real conversations one with another. Oh, and I must quote this statistic. Apparently, when you're having a face-to-face conversation with somebody, and you can see their eyelids, you can see their eye contact, you can see the heaving of their chest if they're getting upset. Apparently, if we have a one-on-one conversation, we can react to somebody in less than 0.12 of a second. That is far, far quicker than YouTube, or far, far quicker than Zoom. It's impossible, and even if our technology gets better and better and better, nothing, in my view, will replace the personal conversation between friends, between acquaintances, and between people advocating for the spread of great ideas. Anyway, thanks for listening, and I recommend this video, which I'll leave a link for you below. And also, I really would encourage you to hit the subscribe button and the bell button, because I would love this channel to grow. I would love to think that we could attract people who are keen to share ideas, even if everybody doesn't agree with them. Thank you. Bye for now.